Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the place where we take those really hard, just overwhelming parts of the learning process, the places where you feel completely paralyzed by information overload, and we pull out the essential architecture for success.
Mm,
So you've likely been there, you've been handed a stack of sources, maybe peer-reviewed articles, maybe just your own field notes, and you know the writing is going to be tough.
right.
But sometimes, and I think this is the key, the absolute most painful part of the entire research journey, it isn't the writing. It's not even the reading.
No, it often comes right at the beginning.
Exactly. It's choosing the topic.
It truly is the silent killer of productivity. We see it happen constantly. A researcher or a student, they can spend weeks, literally weeks, feeling paralyzed because that
Mhm.
initial choice feels so incredibly heavy.
It sets the course for everything.
It does. It's like setting the trajectory for an entire multi-week project, sometimes a whole semester's worth of work. And if that foundation is shaky, if the topic is just fundamentally flawed,
It all falls apart.
everything that follows, the literature review, the analysis, the conclusions, it all just collapses into this unmanageable mess.
And we want to eliminate that paralysis for you. That is why we did this deep dive into your sources. Our mission today is laser focused. We are extracting the fundamental actionable rules for choosing a research topic that isn't just acceptable, but one that is clear, manageable, genuinely interesting, and this is the most important part, demonstrably researchable.
hmm
We're here to turn that overwhelming first step into a bedrock foundation for your entire paper.
And to build that foundation, you have to acknowledge the immediate dangers. The sources are extremely clear on these pitfalls. We see it again and again.
What are they?
Well, you see topics that are just too broad to allow for any specific analysis. Or, on the other end, topics that are so narrow or unusual that there's no academic literature to draw from.
Ah, the research desert.
Hey.
Exactly. Or topics that are too generic to offer any real insight. And maybe the most frustrating of all are the topics that are just plain impossible to research within the time and resource constraints of a standard assignment.
And we are not going to leave you hanging. We are giving you a diagnostic tool right now, something you can use immediately that will save you days, maybe even weeks of wasted effort.
This is the key insight.
It is. It's our rapid feasibility test, the 5 sources rule, and it's what we'll be detailing today. It's a fast, almost brutal check that tells you within 10 minutes whether you should proceed with your idea or just pivot immediately.
So if you're sitting there right now with a massive idea scribbled on a napkin, getting ready to dive into a research database,
Hold that thought.
yes, we're moving straight from that paralyzing decision to the actionable checklist.
Okay, let's unpack this core issue. Every great paper, every meaningful academic contribution, it all begins with a great focused topic.
But the source material overwhelmingly highlights the most common, I'd say most catastrophic mistake. It's the one that sinks most people before they've even written a single sentence.
And that is starting too big.
Way too big. It's that classic, overly enthusiastic approach where you pick a topic because it seems to cover everything important in the world.
And that very universality is its fatal flaw. It's a paradox.
Yeah.
When a topic is so big that it seems to be everywhere, it's, well, for the strict purposes of a research paper, it's functionally nowhere specific.
You have no boundary.
You have no boundaries. You need them to define your argument, and a broad topic gives you none.
So let's introduce a common scenario. We'll call our student Omar. Omar is a first-year student. He's bright, he's curious, and he has to write a 15-page research paper.
Okay.
He decides he wants to write about technology.
The classic.
The classic, he rationalizes it perfectly. Technology is pervasive, it's relevant, he's personally interested in it. Seems sensible, right, on the surface.
Sensible to a layperson, but for an academic paper, it's paralyzing. We have to analyze the immediate, overwhelming overload this causes. Imagine Omar sitting down at the university library computer.
Okay.
He confidently types technology into JSTOR, or Web of Science, or even just a general scholarly search engine. What does he find?
He finds noise, just
Enough,
so
Jack.
noise. He finds literally millions of results, and that sheer volume is an immediate deafening signal of danger.
It is.
The search results cover everything, right? Articles on ethical guidelines for generative AI.
Sure, specifications for the newest smartphone components.
The complexities of telemedicine, the existential threat of cybersecurity breaches.
The social implications of media platforms, the future of robotics and supply chains, it's endless.
So the information is just too disparate. It fragments his focus into 1,000 different academic directions.
You're trying to hold an entire ocean of data with a net that was designed to catch a specific fish. And crucially, there is no central, cohesive argument he can even begin to develop, because the field itself resists any definition at that scale.
The scope is just completely unmanageable. Not for a 15-page paper.
Not for any single assignment.
And that's the true cost, isn't it? It's not just that he has too much to read, it's that the paper itself. It could never adequately cover a topic as vast as technology.
Impossible. If he tried, he would end up with a shallow survey, a mere summary of headlines that just jumps from one massive subfield to another without ever establishing a truly compelling, original, or evidence-backed argument.
He'd just be reporting, not analyzing.
Precisely. And the sources are unanimous on this. It leads us directly to the first and most critical rule. Broad topics cannot lead to strong research papers.
Because they're impossible to cover.
By their very nature, they are impossible to cover within the scope of a single assignment. That feeling of being overwhelmed, that sense of drowning in data, that's the signal. If you can't craft a clear single thesis statement, your topic is too vast.
So if you are reading your assignment sheet or looking at your source material and your initial interest is framed by massive concepts like science, education, environment, history,
Politics.
right, you have to immediately recognize that these are just starting points. They are not the final, finished topics.
They're the initial spark, but they're not the research fire.
I like that. So if Omar had continued with technology, his paper would have been an academic disaster, just summarizing existing knowledge instead of contributing a focused analysis.
The broader the topic, the more superficial the paper has to be. The depth that's required for academic rigor, it just vanishes when the subject spans entire industries or, centuries of human development.
A successful paper is about carving out a niche.
A specific, defensible niche. It's about limiting the scope to maximize the depth.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second. Sometimes the most important topics are the broad ones, like climate change or artificial intelligence. If I choose a narrow topic, won't I miss that bigger, more relevant picture?
That's a common and a really understandable fear, but actually the opposite is true. You only contribute to the bigger picture by specializing. Think of it like this. If Omar writes a paper trying to cover all of technology, he says nothing new. His work gets ignored. But if he writes a focus paper on, say, the impact of AI grading software on student stress levels in community colleges, he contributes a specific, measurable data point that the broader debate on AI ethics can actually use. Specificity is what makes a contribution relevant, not generality.
So it's about finding that small, specific island in the massive ocean of information.
That's the perfect metaphor.
So that's the key shift in perspective, that feeling of being overwhelmed. It confirms the topic is too broad. So now we can move on to the practical solution. How do we get off that massive drowning topic and onto that small, firm island?
That's absolutely right. We can transition now from identifying the pitfall to mastering the solution. And that solution is the necessity of systematic narrowing.
It's a huge shift.
It is. You're moving from trying to capture everything to trying to capture one thing exceptionally well and rigorously.
So what does a successfully narrowed topic look like in the wild? Let's put Omar's disastrous starting point, just technology, next to some examples from the source material that show effective narrowing.
Yeah, the difference is instant and it's transformative. Let's look at the contrast. Compare that vague word, technology, to these focused examples.
Okay.
First one, the impact of social media on teenagers' communication patterns.
Okay, right away. That's better.
Second, how AI study tools influence university students' time management habits.
I see the pattern.
And third, the role of wearable fitness devices in mitigating sedentary behavior among office workers.
Look at that differentiation. They're all still fundamentally about technology, but they instantly give us essential boundaries. We know the specific group: teenagers, university students, office workers, and we know the precise effect being studied.
Communication, time management, sedentary behavior. It's not a vague essay anymore. It's a clear path for investigation, whether it's empirical or literature-based.
These examples make the whole investigation easier to manage and to focus your search strategy.
Exactly. You know exactly what terms to combine in your database searches. You know which population to prioritize for analysis and what specific angle of impact, be it psychological, behavioral, sociological, you're tracing.
It's the difference between being asked to design architecture and being asked to design a high-efficiency, multi-generational dwelling specifically optimized for passive solar gain in a high-density urban environment in the American Southwest.
Right. The second one, even though it sounds incredibly complex, is infinitely easier to start researching.
Because the scope, the context, the constraints, they're all perfectly defined.
Now let's unpack the simple step-by-step methodology that the sources provide for this. This isn't guesswork. This is a crucial four-stage systematic process that allows you to move reliably from that broad, paralyzing idea to a precise, researchable target.
This is the roadmap out of the information overload.
It is. This is the recipe. You can't just leap from technology to a specific research question. It takes discipline.
So what's step one?
Step one, start broad. This is the easy part. It's just that initial interest area, the vague concept that drew you in. It could be education or the environment or history. This is the technology level we started at.
So you acknowledge the interest, but don't set any limits yet.
Not yet. Then, step two, choose a category. Here we begin to focus the field. We move down one level of abstraction. So if we started with education, we might move to something like online learning or standardized testing.
And if we started with environment?
You might move to waste management or freshwater scarcity. You've now defined the specific arena where your research is going to take place, and you're ignoring everything else in that massive initial field.
Okay, that makes sense. Step three.
Step three, choose a specific angle. This is where you identify a specific group or context or methodology. It's the lens through which you'll examine that category you just chose.
Give me an example.
So if we chose online learning, we might narrow it down further to university students, or maybe high school teachers. If we chose waste management, we could focus specifically on plastic waste, or e-waste. This stage is vital because it introduces those essential boundaries we talked about.
Right. And then the final step.
Step four, choose a problem, relationship, or group. This is the pinprick, the final, most specific part of the investigation. We're pinpointing the specific question or impact we want to measure.
So for the university students in online learning.
The problem might be the challenges in maintaining motivation.
And for plastic waste.
The relationship might be the impact on marine ecosystems. This final step is what turns a topic into a real research objective.
So let's review the education example we just built just to see how it works.
Okay.
We started with education, which was broad. We moved to online learning, which was the category. We narrowed that down to university students, the specific angle. And we targeted the challenges in maintaining motivation, which was the problem.
And that systematic process delivers a topic that is clear, defensible, and absolutely researchable. The challenges in maintaining motivation for university students in online learning environments.
That is a manageable paper. You can define motivation, you can examine instructional design, you can look at comparative studies. It's all there.
You have a path forward.
Let's try one more example, something that isn't technology or education, just to show how transferable this system is. Let's say I'm interested in history.
A classic broad topic. History. That's step one.
Step two, choose a category I'm interested in. Military history. Still way too broad.
Way too broad. So step three, a specific angle. Let's look at the Napoleonic Wars. Now we have a time frame, but it's still too big. What about the battles, the political fallout?
Let's choose the logistical challenges of supplying the Grand Army.
That's getting good. Really good. And now, step four, a specific problem or group.
Okay, I want to look at the impact of those logistical challenges, specifically on the supply of medical care and rations during the 1812 Russian campaign.
And there you have it. You've moved from history to the impact of logistical failures on medical care and rations for the French Grand Army during the 1812 Russian campaign.
That is a thesis statement waiting to happen.
It is. You've defined the army, the year, the place, and the specific impact you are measuring. You know exactly what archives or secondary sources you need to search for.
So that's the proof of concept right there. That systematic nature of the four-step process. Start broad, choose a category, choose a specific angle, choose a problem. It automatically leads you away from generality toward that necessary focus.
And the core goal, the ultimate aim of this whole methodology, is to land on a topic that is perfectly balanced. It's the Goldilocks zone.
Not too big, not too small.
Exactly. Neither too large where you drown in data, nor too small where you find no academic sources at all. Manageability is paramount, and this narrowing technique is the tool to guarantee it.
That idea of balance is so critical. You're looking for a topic substantial enough to sustain a rigorous investigation, but constrained enough to make that investigation feasible within the assignment's limits.
And if you follow that four-step method, you will land there almost automatically. You'll move right past the paralysis of Omar's initial mistake.
Okay, so once you've achieved that structural balance, that Goldilocks topic, we need to apply some quality metrics.
Yes, we need to define the characteristics of a good topic, not just a narrowed one. Our sources identify 4 essential pillars for success, and they all have to be structurally sound for the paper to hold up.
They're interdependent.
Completely. Failure in one often means failure in all.
So we're moving from the mechanical process to the quality control. These aren't just suggestions, are they?
No, these are the fundamental requirements for a successful research project.
What's pillar 1?
Pillar 1 is focused. We've already established why this is so essential. It ensures the scope is manageable and prevents that overwhelming fragmentation of the search process.
It gives you a defined boundary.
A defined boundary for your literature review and your analytical scope. Without focus, you have a generalized essay, not a research paper. The constraints are your friend because they force deep analysis over superficial coverage.
It's easy to dismiss focus as just making the topic smaller, but it's more profound than that. Focus dictates your methodology.
How so?
Well, if you're focused on university students' time management, you know you need studies on student behavior. If you're focused on something vague like global warming, you don't know where to start or stop. Focus gives the paper its entire structure.
That's a great way to put it. Okay,
Right.
pillar 2. Interesting. Now, this might sound a bit soft, but it connects directly to personal motivation, which is the engine of the entire research process.
Right.
If the topic isn't compelling and interesting to you, the process will be excruciating, it will be protracted, and the quality of your work will suffer.
Mm.
Research is a marathon, and it requires sustained intellectual curiosity to dig deep into dense literature.
If you don't genuinely care about the question, you'll stop when it gets hard.
You will.
But what if I have a mandatory class? Let's say 18th century municipal policy, and frankly, I find it dry as dust. How do I make that interesting? Is this pillar only for people who get to choose their area of passion?
That's an excellent point. It highlights a necessary trade-off. The goal isn't to make the subject inherently fascinating to everyone. The goal is to find your personal angle of access within the constraints you're given.
So you work with what you've got.
Exactly. If you have to write about 18th century municipal policy, don't try to make the policy itself interesting. Instead, apply the narrowing technique to find a contemporary resonance. Focus on how those 18th century policies on, say, sanitation, establish precedents for modern urban planning.
Ah, so your interest shifts.
Your interest shifts from the dry policy document to the enduring impact on a system you use every single day. You synthesize the required academic material with a lens that maintains your curiosity.
That's a powerful reframing. You're linking the required topic to a personal, relevant interest. You keep the academic rigor, but you insert the necessary motivational fuel.
Right. Which brings us to pillar 3, research friendly. This is the operational definition of feasibility, and it is absolutely crucial.
Can you actually do it?
That's the question. Is the topic actually one that can be investigated using available scholarly resources? This leads directly into that practical litmus test we mentioned, the 5 sources rule.
If you can't find the evidence.
The topic is dead on arrival no matter how focused or interesting it is.
Okay, and the last pillar.
Pillar 4, relevant. Your work should matter to the broader field or the community or the group you are studying. Relevance means your findings contribute something meaningful, even if it's just confirming or challenging an existing hypothesis.
It's the so what question.
It is. You have to ask, so what?
Yeah.
Is the topic timely? Does it address a current gap in knowledge? Does it offer a new lens on an old problem? If your conclusion doesn't matter to anyone, it often indicates the topic itself was poorly chosen.
So a topic has to pass all 4 of those tests. Focused, interesting, research-friendly, and relevant.
If it fails any one of them, it dramatically increases the likelihood of failure, or at least severe difficulty down the road. They form an integrated system. A research-friendly topic that isn't relevant is pointless, and a relevant focused topic that isn't research-friendly is impossible.
Now let's talk about the flip side of this, the do not list. The topics that are just massive red flags and should be avoided because they fundamentally hinder objective scholarly research.
Yes, these topics often sound passionate, but they lack the structure needed for academic investigation. This is really about academic integrity and method.
So what's the first thing to avoid?
First, you must avoid topics that are overly emotional or purely argumentative. The source material specifically warns against phrasing like, why everyone should believe in, or the undeniable truth that.
It's not a campaign speech.
No. Research is built on evidence, reasoned analysis, and critical assessment of both sides of an issue, not proselytizing. An overly emotional or polemical stance often preempts critical engagement with counter-evidence. It turns the paper into advocacy instead of scholarship.
The moment your paper sounds like a slogan, you've strayed from academic rigor. You can argue a strong point, but the structure has to be analytical and objective, driven by data, not by feeling.
Right. Second, you have to steer clear of topics that are controversial without evidence.
That's a subtle but important distinction.
It is. Controversy itself is fine if there's a robust academic backbone, scholarly arguments, peer-reviewed debates, measurable data on both sides. But the topic relies solely on anecdotal evidence, deeply held personal opinions, or fringe theories that have no footing in established academia.
It has no foundation.
It lacks the required foundation.
Yeah.
You can't build a scholarly argument on an absence of peer-reviewed sources. You'll just end up summarizing non-academic blog posts and opinion pieces.
And the third category to avoid.
The impossible topics. Those requiring access to private data, classified information, or advanced scientific resources that are just untenable for a standard academic assignment.
So things like trying to analyze classified government archives from a secure location,
or conducting a randomized controlled trial that requires millions of dollars and specialized equipment. These things require resources, access, and expertise far beyond the scope of typical academic work.
It's a huge difference between doing legitimate, challenging archival research in a public library system,
which is difficult but possible,
and requiring access to proprietary trade secrets or top-secret national security files. That's fundamentally impossible for a student. The topic has to be practically achievable given your constraints of time, money, and access.
Exactly. If you're asked for a literature review, you need to make sure your topic doesn't require you to invent a new molecule or access the internal financial audit of a multinational corporation.
It has to be tenable.
Right. And now we can execute the most practical hurdle of all. Researchability. A research paper requires connecting to existing scholarly work. You are not expected to create all the foundational knowledge from scratch, so your topic must have enough scholarly material available to draw upon, to analyze, and to synthesize.
This is the moment of truth for your topic, isn't it? You might have a perfectly focused, interesting idea, say, the precise nutritional impact of a niche microgreen grown only on a specific remote farm. But if zero peer-reviewed literature exists on that specific microgreen, you're stuck. You have no foundation to build on.
And this brings us back to that practical time-saving tool, the 5 sources rule. This is the rapid feasibility check that every learner should use immediately after they feel they have successfully narrowed their topic.
Okay, let me challenge this. 10 minutes feels brutally fast. How does this rule genuinely save the listener hours of effort? And what exactly qualifies as a strong academic source?
That's a fair challenge, and it gets to the heart of efficiency. First, what counts as a strong source? We mean sources that have undergone peer review or are published by a major university press.
Oh, journal articles.
Articles from reputable academic journals, JSTOR, ScienceDirect, specific disciplinary databases, or scholarly books. We are not talking about Wikipedia, general news articles, advocacy group white papers, or your course textbook.
Got it. Scholarly peer-reviewed material. Now, why the 10-minute time limit? What if I spend 20 minutes and find 4 absolutely perfect seminal articles, but not the 5th? Should I give up then?
The 10-minute limit is a diagnostic tool. It's designed to prevent the sunk cost fallacy. If you can't find 5 distinct, relevant sources quickly, it indicates one of 2 things.
Okay.
First, the topic is genuinely too narrow or unusual. Or second, your search terms are fundamentally flawed. The rule forces an immediate pivot or a systematic reevaluation of your keywords.
So if you find 4 seminal articles in 20 minutes...
That's actually a good sign, because it proves the conversation exists. But if you spend 20 minutes wading through irrelevant newspaper clips and find 0 peer-reviewed hits, the topic is likely not research-friendly.
It's designed to be harsh.
It is, because if the foundational research is difficult to locate, the rest of the paper will be agonizingly slow. It confirms whether the academic conversation has already started and is easy for you to access.
That makes sense. It's a measure of the density of the existing conversation. If a topic is too new or too niche or too specialized without cross-disciplinary support, the literature just won't be there yet.
So the 5 sources rule acts as a necessary, efficient gatekeeper. It prevents you from investing hours or days in developing an idea that simply cannot be supported by the necessary evidence base.
If you pass the test, you know the research-friendly pillar is solid.
Exactly. You can move forward with confidence. If you fail, you cycle back immediately to step 3 of the narrowing technique, and you adjust your angle or your group until you find that sweet spot of academic density.
Okay, we've learned the paralyzing pitfalls of breadth. We've mastered the systematic 4-step narrowing technique, and we've applied the quality check of the 4 pillars and the 5 sources rule. Now let's bring it all home.
Let's do it.
We need concrete examples of topics that successfully meet all these criteria: focused, manageable, practical, and interesting.
These examples from the sources serve as the ideal template. They show precisely how specific you need to be to ensure both depth of investigation and clarity of argument. We can see the rules in action.
Okay, let's take the first one. The effect of bilingual education on primary students' cognitive development.
This is a masterclass in specificity. What was the starting point? Broadly, linguistics or education?
Huge fields.
Massive. The narrowing moved from those massive fields to the specific context, which is bilingual education, the specific group, primary students, and the specific measurable outcome, cognitive development.
And it passes the research-friendly test.
Immediately. Both educational psychology and second language acquisition are huge academic fields, just teeming with peer-reviewed literature. And it's relevant because the debate over education standards is always ongoing.
Okay, and the second example, factors that influence student engagement in online classrooms.
This topic meets the relevance criteria perfectly in our current educational climate, but it also maintains strong confinement. We're looking at factors influencing engagement within a single environment, online classrooms.
So it gives you a clear path.
A very clear pathway for investigation into things like pedagogical methods, technological interfaces, student behavioral economics. If the initial interest was simply education technology, the 4-step narrowing process led them away from the tech itself and toward the specific human experience engagement within that tech framework.
I think the biggest benefit of these topics is just the inherent clarity of the argument. With a topic this focused, you already know what your main body paragraphs need to be.
They need to be the factors.
Factor 1, Factor 2, Factor 3.
Absolutely. The third example is particularly elegant: how sleep affects academic performance among university students. This is a beautifully contained topic.
Where would this one start?
Broadly, it might start with health or psychology. It links two incredibly clear variables: a physiological one, sleep, and an academic one, performance or GPA, and applies them to a defined, accessible population.
University students.
Right. It's highly focused, extremely relevant to that demographic, and you know immediately you'll find academic sources on sleep science, educational psychology, and clinical studies of students. It passes the 5 sources rule instantly.
Then we have this one, the psychological impact of social media filters on self-image.
So timely. And it addresses your point about social media technology, but it grounds the investigation in a single, measurable, defined outcome: self-image. It avoids that crushing breadth of just social media by focusing only on the filters and their specific psychological consequences.
So the narrowing technique here would have gone from social media
To image-sharing platforms as the category, then digital alterations as the angle, and finally self-image consequences as the problem.
Perfect. And the last one, the benefits and challenges of remote work for working mothers.
Again, just note the incredible specificity that the narrowing technique demands. It's not remote work for everyone, or even remote work for parents.
It's a specific demographic.
The specific dynamics, both benefits and challenges, as they pertain to a specific identifiable demographic group: working mothers. This allows for rich, nuanced analysis regarding labor economics, sociology, and gender studies, rather than just generalized statements about work-from-home policy.
Which would fail the focused test.
Completely. These 5 examples illustrate the outcome of successful narrowing, a topic that is strong enough to sustain rigorous research, but small enough to manage. And they all fulfill that second pillar we talked about.
It must be interesting.
Let's circle back to that interest factor, because it's the motivation that drives the engine. Research writing becomes significantly easier and frankly more enjoyable when you genuinely care about the question being explored.
If you're fueled by intellectual curiosity, you don't resent the dense reading.
You embrace it.
It's the difference between doing homework and solving a puzzle you personally want the answer to. That internal motivation, it acts as a safeguard against burnout. It ensures a higher quality of final analysis because you will instinctively go the extra mile.
You'll seek out the nuance and the counterarguments. But we acknowledged earlier that sometimes you don't have total freedom. Sometimes the instructor gives you a massive general theme. They say, you must write about globalization, or your paper must relate to public policy.
Or choose something related to climate change. What do you say to the learner who feels the instructor is imposing that broad topic on them?
The source material is really clear on this, and it's vital. Even when the instructor provides a general theme, the learner still needs to execute the narrowing dramatically. In fact, this is often a test.
A test of what?
It demonstrates your ability to think critically and to choose a direction that aligns your personal interest with the available scholarly resources. You are proving that you can take a massive, overwhelming concept and turn it into a researchable, focused project.
So it becomes a mastery test of the narrowing technique itself. If they give you environment, they expect you to execute the 4-step process and land on something like impact of plastic waste on marine ecosystems, not just write a general essay about global warming trends.
Precisely. It shows you know how to operate within given constraints while demonstrating critical, scholarly independence. The instructor provides the container, you provide the focused, rigorous content.
So let's conclude Omar's journey. He started with the overwhelming, paralyzing breadth of technology. He applied the 4-step narrowing technique, he passed the crucial 5 sources rule diagnostic, and he adhered to the 4 pillars of quality.
And Omar's final, strong topic, as confirmed in the source material, is the influence of AI study tools on university students' time management.
Let's check the boxes on why this works one last time. Is it focused?
Yes, specifically AI study tools, not all tech, and specifically time management.
Is it interesting?
Yes, he's a university student, so it relates directly to his life.
Is it research-friendly?
Absolutely. The academic conversation on AI pedagogy and student success is booming. He will find his 5 sources very quickly.
And finally, is it relevant?
Yes. This is a major policy debate in higher education right now. Omar has moved from paralyzing ambiguity to actionable clarity.
And that actionable clarity is the defining factor of success. Once the topic is finalized and meets all these criteria, the hard work of just conceptualization is over.
It is.
That sets us up perfectly for the next step. Once that strong, focused topic is established, the next major step is transforming it into a specific research question. And that question is built directly on the strong foundation you've just established.
It's the next logical piece.
Yeah. If your topic is the address, a specific building in a specific city, your research question is the specific door you knock on to begin the investigation.
I like that analogy.
Okay, let's circle back to the core foundational lesson of this deep dive. A good research topic is not merely a title you slap on your paper. It is the absolute foundation of your entire endeavor. It's the scaffolding for your analysis, the lens for your literature review, and the essential boundary for your conclusions.
And when that topic is focused, clear, research-friendly, and interesting to you, the learner has preemptively set themselves up for success. You mitigate the risk of feeling overwhelmed, you guarantee the availability of supporting evidence, and you ensure that the process of writing itself will be intellectually stimulating, not just an academic chore.
That initial investment of time, the time you spend narrowing, testing with the 5 sources rule, and ensuring it meets those 4 pillars, is arguably the most valuable time you will spend on the entire assignment.
I completely agree. It pays off in clarity and manageability every single step of the way. If you try to rush the topic selection,
You pay for it later.
you inevitably pay for it later with massive frustrating rewrites and endless fruitless searches. Prioritize the foundation.
So we have established that the strong topic is that crucial foundation. But this raises an important question for you, the listener, to mull over as you finalize your choice.
Okay.
What happens if you have a perfectly strong, focused topic like Omar's idea on AI tools and time management, but you fail to connect it explicitly to the research question?
Yes. The topic defines the subject matter, but the research question dictates the methodology and the scope of inquiry. Why is that translation so vital? Well, the failure to make that explicit jump turns a clear subject into an aimless investigation.
Because you don't have a goal.
You don't. Without a question, you don't know what kind of data you're trying to gather or what kind of answer you're trying to prove. Think about how the question dictates the action of the paper. That's the next problem you'll need to solve.